And we're back. So what do we have here? This is a vehicle that I refer to as the Cherub, and it's a melee craft. It's white flare styled, although it has a little bit of twin guard style to it, as well as, well, stuff that's not really styled after any particular vehicle. My headcanon is that the white flares harpoon a twin guard vehicle, drag it back to one of their cathedrals. A priest raises his staff, wiggles it around, yells "Wooloo-loo-loo-loo," and bam, white flare's vehicle. So that's why it uses tractor beams. At least that's my excuse, because apparently they are just a legitimate way to ram vehicles and give your armor some massive repairing capabilities. Each of these guys is about 50 particle cannon firepower because it's overclocked, which I find to be worth it. I don't really see a reason not to do it with melee packs. They're still efficient enough. Originally, I had drills here. It's why they have engine power. It's actually also is why they have as much energy as they do. Because I kind of forgot, and as you might see from having watched the short video about the Anguish, that docked vehicles neither deal nor receive impact damage, so the Anguish doesn't have to worry about impacts onto its laser sword. And this can't make use of steam drills, so this thing that used to all be steam drills is no longer all steam drills. I haven't really been happy with the packs either. I think laser cutters would just generally be a better choice, especially because laser cutters can be used for other things, or more particularly, the laser system driving the laser cutters can do anti-air, it can do lambs. It's just generally very useful, and then I think it even still does better damage than the packs, just generally speaking. So there's almost no reason not to use laser cutters. If packs didn't get their damage cut in half when melee was reworked, I'd say sure, go ahead. So up here in the front, I have 3 different tractor beams, 2 for what I refer to as the lancets, and 1 for the shield. I'm pretty happy with how the shield looks. I didn't build anything into this for intercepting projectiles or tracking enemy vehicles, so it just sits in front. If it catches projectiles, great. Otherwise, things are not so good because this vehicle is relatively fragile, and in particular, taking out these tractor beams just immediately ends its ability to do anything. The same with this materials container. This might be better off broken up into smaller materials containers because one hit to this immediately ends this thing's ability to fight. Although it can still have energy and batteries, as well as a little bit of fuel, but it really reduces it to not a whole lot. So as for styling, I tried to use a little bit of empty space, or negative space, which I'm mostly happy with. There's some stuff that I'm not happy with, like the tail end, which looked better when I had these stowed here when it wasn't fighting, but I made some changes to allow these to rotate, and I didn't have enough room to also allow them to retract back. The 2-axis turret doesn't have enough clearance. So they don't do that anymore, and now that they don't fill up the space, I think it looks a lot worse in this position than it did before, but I'm still kind of happy with it. So let's fight a few vehicles to see how this does. I think it's generally fine, but not amazing. So we'll start with the Pilfer. It's not terribly deadly. On the way in, we're using Charge. When we get close, we'll use Point At and Maintain Distance, because the Charge tends to keep repeating the charge. I could probably disable that, although I kind of tried, it didn't work that well. So we will toss enemy vehicles sometimes. It's just the wonders of tractor beams. The smaller the vehicle, the worse it gets tossed, but large vehicles can get tossed as well. I'm probably going to use a screenshot that I took of the Thrasher I think it's the Thrasher, being thrown into orbit as the thumbnail. It's not common to throw a vehicle that big, that far, but it certainly does happen. So, vehicle successfully destroyed. It does make for good crowd control. even if this can't really kill something, it can at least crowd control it. If you flip a vehicle over, like the Rhea, it's pretty much done. So these Krems are really scary, and are potentially just straight up better melee weapons than what I'm working with here. Like, if the Krems are actually optimized instead of just Doom HE, what's really scary are these barrels poking through the shields. They can just end a fight immediately. So fortunately, that damage was not that bad. Getting damaged through like that, though, can be a game under very, very quickly. And it looks like she's about to get cut in half. Yep. There she goes. The Plunderer can win. It is highly unlikely, though. Still got decent materials. This thing can really burn through materials. If the heavy armor takes a lot of damage, or if the PACs take a lot of damage, that can be quite bad. The Abactor is a new vehicle for me. It must have popped up at some point during the last year, or at least been somewhat recent afterwards. I've looked at it a few times, but not in much detail. I've just blown it up once or twice since coming back. It's a good test vehicle, though, because it's relatively small and blobular, so we don't have huge issues engaging it most of the time. So this really shows off how much impact damage we can do if we can actually get good engagement. It's also relatively easy to keep a shield in front of, so it doesn't have much of a chance of really fighting back. For the most part, I have the point at distance set up so that we don't really ram vehicles that hard. When they get thrown around, it's mostly from the lancets. I could set it up so that we really, really shove them with the shield. Yeah, this is peak from the depths, right? This is how this game was meant to be played. And there she goes. Got a respectable amount of damage in there. We did drop our shields. Yep, I think we accidentally rammed the enemy vehicle and lost a bunch of stuff. It's unfortunately something that... This is not quite right. It's unfortunately something that can happen. Is this not going to get fixed? Well, this is a good time to look at our top speed, which I have apparently fallen out of this vehicle. No, please build on the craft. Thank you. Which is only 56 meters per second. It's like this because the actual main vehicle is the thing driving around, and I made the front pretty blocky. It's not like a lot of the Twin Guards craft, which have a very small vehicle pushing a very big one, which is generally the optimal way to do things, although if you kill the small pushing vehicle, the whole thing kind of dies. So, I'll look at a few other craft. Actually, let's do a White Flares one. I think all of their godlies are just kind of huge or too fast for us to chase down. Piercer is the same cost as us, though, and this craft is not really a godly... Oh, I didn't put myself back in. Alrighty. So, the Piercer is making good block confetti, but it doesn't... Despite appearances, it's not really getting through the shield. It's not doing any real effective damage. And then we get to dismantle this cucumber. It can be a little bit difficult. I don't allow this craft to try to go underwater. I did for a while because it has propeller blades. It's just not that effective. So sometimes it just messes up a little bit and doesn't actually finish off the craft. Now, in this case, the Piercer is not actually fighting back. And the real issue with this is that the enemy vehicle is deep enough that we keep switching back into charging mode. So we keep exiting the point at and maintain distance, I think, and then go back into charging mode. And at this point, we can't even engage at all because it's too low. Even if I did let this vehicle go underwater, the lightweight alloy that it's made out of is so light that it's very difficult for it to actually push underwater. It's basically a waste of time. So let's take a look at some of the weaknesses of the shield. Primarily that you can just punch straight through it in one go. So some of those shells just went straight through. The middle is a bit more resilient, but since the Rhea throws multiple shells at the same time, they can still go through. The Rhea can actually one-shot the Cherub. I've only seen it once, but it absolutely can do so. The Cherub can also win. It is not common for it to do so, but it certainly can win, and it does it either by capsizing the Rhea so that she can't fight back, throwing her into orbit, which is unlikely but can happen, or by drowning her, which is the most common way to do it. So, regardless of whether or not the Cherub wins or loses in this case, this is highly effective crowd control. Oh, I think we just lost. Never mind, we're still up. The Cherub herself is at 94%, so still alive after that. I was expecting her to just actually be dead. Still has battery power, not all of it, but still has battery power, still has materials. If she loses too much battery power, she loses her engines. Her engines are entirely electric. Oh, here goes the capsize. Unfortunately, there's a good chance that we'll either right the Rhea or she'll right herself. I think she's got roll props, so she can right herself. However, if this is part of a fleet engagement, the Rhea wouldn't really be fighting anyone else. Unfortunately, we just went from point at to charge, which stopped our engagement. And it looks like we might flip her back upright. Vehicles this large are a significant issue to engage. Oh, it's space time. And she's going back down. So I took the Rhea to 90%. And she's not engaging that effectively because we're behind her. The chances of us actually cutting the Rhea in half are almost zero because she's so large that we keep losing the point at and maintain distance functionality because I don't have her tuned to fight vehicles that are this large. And we keep doing this. Which means we keep losing the position that we're shooting at her from. And then sometimes this happens, where if she gets the gun elevation, we're just going to be dead. Oh, there we go. That's pretty much the optimal fighting position. I think the Rhea's about to get a too low despawn. Because she is still going down. Oh, we're helping her out. We're helping her out. Oh, nope, she's dead. Okay. Well, that can happen. It's not likely, but it can happen. We also just tased our shield a little bit, which can also happen. So, I don't have a whole lot more to fight with this. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. I'll put this up on the Steam Workshop so that if you feel like messing around with it, you can do whatever you want with it. I do have fun using it. It's definitely cheesy. It's still not actually that amazing a craft, though, as cheesy as it is. There are certainly much worse things that you can do. And this is campaign approved, I think. At least the overall craft is just using things that are allowed in the campaign, which I am entirely not salty about. I have no idea why anyone would think that I'm salty. I think that might have been a low health despawn. She did come apart in 2 pieces though, so maybe that was actually being cut in half. It really didn't look like it to me though. Alright, one more. So, let's see, what should I try? Is it a godly? Let's try another one that'll give the shield a lot of issues. Missiles are always a problem because they're very good at getting around the shield. The Iron Cordon does launch them forwards, so we do have somewhat of a chance. But any that miss the shield are actually a problem. Oh, we lost one of the lancets. We will rebuild it eventually. It might be too late, though. Oh, that went around the shield, didn't it? Yeah, I see some damage to the corner of the craft. So the Iron Cordon is small enough to fight. I don't know if she'll launch missiles from this position. Nice, she tanked it for us. Or this position. This is just a whole new dimension of From the Depths gameplay. There we go, that's what we needed. Those missiles coming back? They are. Oh no. Okay, we dodged one. Oh no. Ooh, okay, we're good. Okay, maybe we're not. This does not look good. Oh, okay, that's what we're missing. We are pretty redundant though, so I think we'll recover. And recover we have. Oh, there goes another one of our forward propellers. We're still fine though. We have 2 groupings of custom jet engines and another forward propeller. That's quite a bit of damage, yeah. Down to below 80%. And she's had significant portions of her detonated. The Iron Cordon is highly explosive. And there she goes, she's despawning. Well, let's take a look at how we limp along. So, anyway, this is the Cherub. I'm probably going to take advantage of some of these abusive tactics for whatever next White Flares vehicle I build. Floating shields, floating weapons, that sort of thing. Obviously, not really part of the White Flares identity. Not that the White Flares really have an identity at the moment. A lot of their crafts are growing rather launchiness in the tooth. But that's part of the reason that I like them. I don't really know what'll happen with them moving forwards. I think that they've got quite a few bounties at the moment because they have some old vehicles. I'm not sure if people are working for them or are really making any craft for them. I'm not really active on the Discord at this point anymore. I think that there's probably a lot of potential for them as a faction, and I like making fan builds for them because their vehicles just feel more approachable to me. But if I load in a White Flares ship like the aforementioned launchiness, although I've been using a soft G for pun reasons there, I think it's supposed to be a hard G. This is just a very approachable craft. Especially back when this was made, it was fine as far as the aesthetic considerations. It's not outstanding in any real way, but it's the sort of thing you look at as a normal person playing the game and you think, okay, yeah, I can probably make something like that if I put enough effort in. Or, you know, a whole fleet that's up to that standards. Oops, I don't want load vehicle. If I load in more recent vehicles, I only look at it and say, well, you know, that would take me, like, my entire gaming career of From the Depths to hopefully make one vehicle that looks this good. And making a whole fleet of it isn't really that achievable. It's not like I'm trying to say that's a bad thing. Like, we shouldn't have vehicles that look good in the campaign. Of course we should, but I'm sort of drawn to a lot of the factions that just have slightly more approachable looks in their vehicles. Anyway, that's all that I've got for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the future.